It's the Sports Peninsula podcast coming up. We're previewing the upcoming NBA draft that will take place on Thursday, June 22nd at the Barclay Center in Brooklyn, New York. The Pistons took a disappointing drop in the lottery from 1st to 5th. But is this a devastating outcome? We'll look at who might be available and give our predictions next. Now here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Drzinski. Drew. It is Saturday, the 17th of June, and we're talking NBA draft. And wouldn't like to talk about the NBA draft without my co-host and co-founder of the Sports Peninsula podcast, Coach Andy Shield of the Marine City Mariners. Coach, how you doing?
Drew, doing well, man. Doing well. Just, excited about, the NBA draft. Yes, I think everybody knows that we would like to be at number one, selecting probably the biggest, draft buzzworthy player, almost really since LeBron. But that didn't happen. And that didn't need to happen. I think we just saw a new NBA champion crowned that was led by the 41st player picked in his draft in Nikola Jokic. So, we're about teams here anyway. Even the bad boy era, we were about being a team. Even though we had some star quality caliber guys back then. But we have to be a team first, and we can get one heck of a change agent and team player with our picks this year.
Yeah, I agree with you, Coach. It's really exciting to talk NBA draft, but again, it was a gut punch. I know everyone anticipated this happening 2 years ago, but then the Pistons get the number one pick and get Cade Cunningham. And last year, I did we slip back, I believe, one spot, or was it 2 spots last year, Coach? 2 spots, yeah. Well, not such a bad thing. Jaden Ivey's pretty damn good basketball player. That's a guy, you got to be excited about. And but there's a lot of talent here.
Jalen Duren too. So
what's that?
We traded up back up into the first round and got Jalen Duren too. So
absolutely. So, it's disappointing. Everybody wanted to have the worst record. But you know what, folks, you got to understand something. If you finish in the bottom 3, you've got a 14% chance of getting the first pick, along with the number 2 and number 3 teams. The Pistons literally had a 47% chance of landing at number 5 this year. That was the odds. So it was a coin flip, basically. They lost that flip, and it's the way the lottery shakes out. I don't like it in one sense, but in another sense, especially in the NBA, it's absolutely necessary because these owners will tank. You've got radio personalities encouraging it up and down. Oh, you got to tank, And it ain't your millions you're spending. So that's easy. That's house money. Then you can say whatever you want, but it encourages teams to not do that as much because you might end up like the Pistons. And I'm not saying the Pistons tank, but teams do it. And to tank your season and then to wind up picking 5th would really suck. Let's just call it what it is. But
it does. Yeah. It absolutely does. We haven't won more than 20 games in a year, and how long? And we're just playing around with this. Well, we're going to have 14 first-round draft picks on our roster. It's time to move on and move to the next level.
Absolutely.
Or move on from the regime, because enough is enough. It's just not sustainable to do it this way. This is 80s, 90s Clippers. This is just,
Yeah, we got to start hitting on
it. We need to start hitting on it.
Exactly.
We should be able to.
Well, they've got a couple first-round picks this year again, right, Coach? The number 5 overall and the number 31. So, again, and also their second-round picks. So they're going to be in line to add some talent again. And in the NBA draft, unlike the NHL or the MLB drafts, these guys are going to make an immediate, much like the NFL. But there's only 2 rounds, so it's like there's an immense pressure to make the team and not miss on a pick. So, but Coach, you mentioned the regimes, and I'd like to hear your thoughts because they did make a change about a month ago. Dwayne Casey moves up into the front office, and the Pistons add Monty Williams as the coach of the Pistons on a record contract. What were your thoughts on this hiring?
Well, Monty Williams, he took an organization with the Phoenix Suns. First of all, Monty Williams got a tremendous pedigree, University of Notre Dame graduate, longtime NBA player, played for a bunch of teams, had success as a player, very good success as a player. Became intimately involved, working with some great organizations, climbing the ladder, eventually becoming head coach of the Phoenix Suns. And he took them from where the Pistons are now, from where they are now, and turned them into an NBA finalist and a perennial top 3 Western Conference playoff team.
Yeah,
they moved on from him, just like what it seemed like to be the du jour thing to do in the NBA is fire your coach if you didn't make it to the Western or if you didn't make it to the NBA Finals. Boston's the only one that really didn't, and rightfully so. Mazzulla's a great coach, but Monty Williams is a phenomenal coach. Just recently been named the coach of the year. Is going to bring a different type of mentality. We long talked about the Pistons needing to defend, and for whatever reason, Dwayne Casey and his staff was not able to convey that message to this group because they were the worst in the league. It's not even close. Monty Williams is going to change that. He comes from that 3-and-D mentality. He values that type of player in his rotations and lineup. And we have some pieces in place and very well should be able to draft another one of those pieces that could really be a change agent for us. Also on the free agent market as well.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better, Coach. You hit it right on the head. But the number one concern is this team just doesn't defend, and like you said, and I don't understand that because quite frankly, I'm not an elite basketball player. I played a lot as a kid and through high school and stuff like that, and played against you a lot, Coach, right in some of those driveway wars. But guess you just if you don't shoot the lights out, you don't jump through the roof. But you know what you can do? You can work your ass off and be difficult to play against. And every NBA player, and I mean every single one of them, are athletic enough and strong enough and fast enough to do that. So as a fan, I have a real problem with this group not managing to be able to do that. And this has got to change, and this is the right guy to do it. I don't think there's any doubt. And quite frankly, Coach, the fact that Monty Williams is getting paid what he's getting paid, he ain't going to be fired in 1 year or 2 years because folks and they'll make changes in personnel on the court. Because to your point, they have 14 first-round picks on your roster going into the season, and if you can't even be competitive, you're not the right players for maybe this league, let alone this organization. But I'm really excited about this, to be honest with you, because of course the top 3 guys. I mean, and we're not going to talk about them in depth, but if you could, Coach, before we jump into our prospects, briefly discuss the top 3 guys that we're basically saying aren't going to be available.
Well, Victor Wembanyama out of France is the 7'4", 7'5" phenom. He really is kind of a combination of Kevin Durant, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and in some ways, kind of with some of the Kobe type skills and Jordan type skill sets as well. It's just something that we really haven't seen. Now, we are no strangers to a failed French prospect. We've had 2 come through our program very recently, one of which is I think he's back in Europe already, and that's Sekou Doumbouya. Yeah. He did not translate at all. And it was quick. It was quick. He was done and gone real fast. And Killian Hayes showed a little improvement last year, but it was on a 17-win team. I mean, I would not be surprised if Killian Hayes is moved on from before camp even. I think it's very possible. Like you said, there's going to be roster transformation that takes place. This roster has proven itself to be something that is very much in moldable clay mode still. It has not hit the kiln. He may be one of those pieces as well. Victor Wembanyama is a French prospect that does not show some of those kinds of concerns. Much more Pascal Siakam, Tony Parker than he is Sekou Demboye or Killian Hayes. So, he really is something else. And then Scoot Henderson is the likely second pick. Tremendous athlete. He would be, there's probably two generational type players in this, and at least on paper and going into the draft there, which means they both could wind up not being the generational talents that everyone says they are. And two other players could be, but Scoot Henderson would be the second. And he's a big, long, tall point guard that really can press the floor. Think LiAngelo Ball, but even with more of a scorer's touch. He could really be something that's just perennial all-star, nothing quite like it, and highly, highly sought-after talent. He defends, he can drive, he can kick, he can create, he can shoot. An outstanding prospect, but a 6'6" point guard. And then there's Brandon Miller from the University of Alabama, who there's some, the situation could be considered somewhat fluid. He's definitely probably the third best player in this draft, but a 6'9" stretch 4 combo forward, can play the wing, can defend the perimeter a little bit, can defend the low and high block, is a help defender, can really, make passing lanes difficult by being a pass disruptor, block shots. He's an instant scorer. This is somebody, he's a coveted player in this league that doesn't value the big man like it used to. You need to be able to stretch the floor and play away from the basket as well. Brandon Miller certainly brings those capabilities to his game. He was involved in a criminal situation that involved gun violence and a gun-related death down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, this past winter, where a teammate used a gun registered in Brandon's name to ultimately kill somebody. This is now the report and the investigation is pretty clear, and Brandon Miller was trying to leave that area. He was trying very much to get away from that situation, and time just didn't yield for him the ability to do so in full. This is a little bit different from a situation that we talked about. It's quite a bit different than the situation we talked about in another draft show in another league with Jalen Carter in the University of Georgia. In some ways, Brandon's a little closer to this one. In some ways, he's less culpable as well. But nonetheless, it's not where you want things to stand. It's definitely, a red flag, so to speak, or a big red check mark on your paper going into the league. And that's a concern and could be a reason he slips a bit. But those are the likely 3 top picks in the NBA draft come this Wednesday.
So, Coach, let's jump into who we think the Pistons will have on the board potentially at number 5. And let's start out with Cam Whitmore, the small forward out of Villanova. What do you like about him?
Cam Whitmore is a player and prospect that has long been rumored to be high on the Piston board. And, what's not to like? The Pistons a few years ago drafted a player in Saddiq Bey that is really of similar size. The Pistons took a player that, really did very well for them for a few years in the early parts of the rebuild with Saddiq Bey out of Villanova. Cam Whitmore is not unlike Saddiq Bey, but may come with a little bit more of a physical frame that will allow him to be more of a stretch 4, more of a power forward than a wing that could, really help him diversify his skill set as a player. He is big and physical. He possesses that ability to play block to block and do those things, as well as he possesses the great ability to catch and shoot from the perimeter and be a 3-point threat and a perimeter scorer as well. So he's got that diverse physical skill set and an offensive basketball skill set to be an in and out scoring threat as a forward. Once again, now here's the thing, what kind of defensive player is Cam Whitmer going to translate to be? He's 6'7", 230. All right. So, he's not 6'8", he's not 6'9", he's not 6'10", he's not 6'11". Length is not necessarily on his side. Could that become difficult for him in some matchups? It certainly would be. But Cam Whitmer is tough, he's physical, and he is talented and can score the basketball, which does meld well with the Jaden Ivies, the Cade Cunninghams, and the like.
Yeah, I think Whitmore, to me, checks every box I want to see as a Piston right now, because I see the potential in how he can be a very good defender. His size, his physicality. I have no concerns about Cam Whitmore. I honestly, in my mind, Coach, my concern is will he be there? Will he be the fourth guy off the board? It's possible, but we'll see. But yeah, I like Cam Whitmore a lot. Piston fans should be salivating getting a guy like this. In my mind, he's a very good basketball player. We got another guy though, Amen Thompson out of Overtime Elite. He's 6'7", 200 pounds. What do you like about him?
Well, just like we talked about the first three picks being somewhat, telegraphed and what we think they're going to be, there's three primary talents that the Pistons are really looking at the fifth overall pick. And, Cam Whitmer is one of them. And then the Thompson twins. And no, we're not talking about the 80s pop band from England. No. We're talking about Amen and Asar Thompson. And they are even more so today than they were maybe a week or so ago, Drew, what we're looking for, because Monty Williams loves the 3-and-D style player, the perimeter defender that can, shut you down off the dribble and really be a nuisance when it comes to the perimeter shooting of a team. He is just long, and they defend shots and change angles and make it very difficult to have much rhythm from the perimeter as a scorer. And taking that piece away and then translating on the other end to be an off the dribble nightmare, transition nightmare, fluid scorer like Amen Thompson. Now, Asar is the more heralded. He is the two-time defending MVP of Overtime Elite. We'll get to Asar here in a minute. But Amen Thompson has been, I think, longer heralded as the more dynamic player from a standpoint of his ability and what he can do at the basket. He is got that just real long, whippy, bendy, flexy, explosive, twitchy ability. He might be as athletic as anybody in this draft, or more athletic than anybody in this draft. Scoot Henderson aside, probably. Really, it's Amen Thompson. He is a true playmaker. He's fiercely creative. We talked about the ball down and in Charlotte. And kind of being a fierce playmaker and real creative. Amen Thompson brings that kind of game with even more of a mentality at finishing at the basket too. He's very comfortable, fluid ball handler, real explosive. He could, this would be a small forward type that could really just, him and Jaden Ivey could just be electric out there and could enhance our ability to defend the perimeter, which we must become much better at. Amen Thompson's truly a fit. Probably even in my mind's eye, more so than even Cam Whitmer is now.
Offensively, he's lights out. There's no question about it. And athletically, he's got it all. I mean, he's an outstanding prospect, Coach. It's very well stated. Let's talk about his brother,
Asar Thompson. Now, this is the player I do think this is who they're going to take. I really do. If he's there, and he may be the one that goes at 4, very possibly, or even 3. Asar Thompson's 6'7", about 5 pounds heavier than his twin brother Amen, the 2-time MVP of Overtime Elite. He is a ready-made, ready-to-go 3-and-D type player. Tremendous defender, very articulate, very unselfish player. He has great length and ability to cover the perimeter, whether he's locking you down off the dribble, whether he's redirecting you from your drive path, whether he's going to force you to kick out of the triple threat position because you just have nowhere to go, or he alters your shot from the perimeter. Ausar Thompson's going to do it night in, night out, and throughout the night and day when they play games. He is going to be a change agent for a team's defensive prospects and success. There's just no two doubts about it. And, he is more of a catch and shoot guy. He has tremendous athletic ability. It's not like a man got it all and he got none. That's absolutely not the case. Ausar Thompson can run the floor just as well as anybody. But his game style is a little bit more perimeter oriented, where Amen's a little bit more, drive and score, drive and create, drive and kick, which really the Ausar Thompson type of player is what this league's all about. It's what this league's all about. And that's who's winning championships, are teams that have Ausar Thompson type players. This is the guy I see the Pistons getting.
Yeah, and here's a litmus test. If anyone wants to do a quick check, YouTube highlights from Amen and then YouTube highlights from Azur, and you will see the difference. They're both great players, but to Coach's point, Amen's going to show you there's going to be a lot of posterizing dunks. First few clips you see. Azur, you're going to see blocks, shot blocks from way out. The Pistons need that desperately. There's nobody on that team right now that's really scared. Yeah, I mean, there's guys that potentially can be great defenders. Ain't nobody scared of the Pistons right now defending them. This guy, along with Monty Williams and a mindset change, could change a lot real quick and be that kind of an impact. I agree with you, Coach. I like Whitmore a lot, but it would be very difficult to take him over Ausar Thompson if he's there at 5. I agree with you. Let's talk about another guy, Jarace Walker out of Houston.
Well, there's some talk of some things. There's a lot of buzz sitting around the Pistons, and Troy Weaver. This is like one of the busiest times of the year for him. He really is a very active, aggressive general manager, and our roster is obviously in flux, still in need of making some changes. And it's still in that constant state of change mode. And there has been talk of Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart, being moved potentially to Boston, where the Celtics are very, very much inquiring on him. Well, if that were the case, a guy like Jarace Walker would be a replacement style type of person. He very, very similar skill set to Beef Stew, 6'8", 235. He's kind of your combo forward, your modern day big man, which is not necessarily as big as they used to be. But it's a very mobile, fluid person that can stretch the floor, catch and shoot off the perimeter, take you off the dribble and create and finish, as well as have the post-scoring capability, interior scoring capability that we've seen, throughout basketball somewhat traditionally. But this back down and post move skyhook era is no longer. That's not how it's done. And Jarace Walker is your modern day big man. And he possesses all those skills. He has all the versatility you would ask for from a skill set. It's adjusting to the league, adjusting to the length, adjusting to the athletic ability that Jarace Walker is going to need to be able to do. He's a ready-made player. I think some of the emphasis has gone to the Thompsons, and really, because of Monty Williams coming to Detroit and knowing, the type of emphasis he plays, or he puts on the type of player that the Thompsons are, as compared to even more of Cam Whitmore, or as compared to a Jarace Walker. So I'm not sure where that stands still today. If the Pistons were not enamored with Brandon Miller, if they were concerned, and Brandon Miller went on some sort of slide where Wembanyama and Henderson went 1 and 2, just like everybody expects, and then the Thompsons go 3 and 4, then I could see it becoming a little bit more interesting for the Pistons. Do they get into the Brandon Miller fray, or are they, going to look at Whitmore or Jerace Walker? I would just think that if Whitmore was there, that's who they would go with. Probably the next, of the skill type player they're looking for. That's what they have. We have so many big men. I mean, we have Marcus Bagley, James Wiseman, Jalen Duren, Beef Stew. So I mean, we have so many of them. I just don't see this as positionally the fit that we really are looking for with the 5th overall selection, because that's where Jerace Walker would go. But a fine player indeed.
Yeah, real good player. But yeah, I would agree. When you bring up Brandon Miller, to me, if he slides, I'm going to take the high road like I did with Jalen Carter. I'm going to trust Troy Weaver's judgment on this one. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Brandon Miller's about off the court. I know on the court he's lights out. That I know. And you brought up the situation earlier, and he didn't have any criminal culpability in that situation, which is good. What's not good was some of the reactions afterward and some of the nonsense we saw, and that's where I start questioning maturity levels and is your head really in this? The fact that if he does slide again, I'm just going to trust Troy Weaver on that, because that they'll know if this is a guy that's going to be a fit for our organization, and that's that, and I'll trust him on that. I still expect Miller to go 3rd, that being said. So I would be still surprised if he slipped. But it could happen, to your point. Absolutely. Let's talk about another prospect, Coach, Anthony Black out of Arkansas.
Well, now we're talking more like the 31st pick. We're talking maybe a little bit further down the pike. Now, that 31st pick, there's all sorts of guys. Like we said, the person that was the MVP of the NBA the last couple of years, Nikola Jokic, was drafted at the 41st pick in the draft. So, I mean, lest we forget that these later rounds can yield Hall of Famers, Dennis Rodman, let alone, players that are going to be very valuable. And at 31, we could do different things. We could package to move up. We could package to move forward, which means, a first rounder next year or something like that. Or we could package it with a player to really move up and do something different. So, it's a very, obviously a fluid situation. Hate to always be using that word, but it is a very fluid situation with that pick, especially. But Anthony Black would be somebody, if we did keep the 31st pick, he'd be a really intriguing guy. He is built very similar to that of a man in Asar Thompson, very, very similar size. Combo guard, not a wing. He's a combo guard. He has point guard skills. So he'd be a real long point guard, which I know is very, very, very posh in the NBA right now, is to have that slasher long kind of strider point guard. Plays with NBA a bit like body control. He's a very athletic, nuanced player. We talk about movement skills all throughout the NFL draft process when we were covering the NFL draft earlier in the year. Anthony Black has some of those translatable skills with body movement to basketball. Whether he's truly the fastest or quickest, that's up to the watch and to the digital grids that they're using. But at the same time, he really possesses that. He's a big point guard, which, obviously would be good for matchup situations. And he's a very physical defender, something that, once again, Monty Williams puts a premium on. Why he, him and Chris Paul were such a good fit, and the things that he was able to do to elevate Devin Booker's game in Phoenix. Yeah. So, Anthony Black's surely an intriguing prospect out of the University of Arkansas.
Yeah, nice player. Like you said, the versatility he brings to the table at that 31 is great value. So it would be interesting to see what happens with Anthony Black. If he's there, he's definitely in play, no question. And so is this gentleman, Terquavion Smith out of North Carolina State, NC State. Coach, what do you like about him?
He's lean and meat. Terquavion is a thin guy, 6'4", 165, so he's going to have to hit that weight room a little bit, and he's going to have to hit the weight room a little bit. I mean, that's just, he needs to put 20 pounds on to be, to be able to physically endure in the NBA level. But he's real quick and lean, and that is part of his persona and game style. That's how he plays. Think of his game set very similar to Rip Hamilton's. Not saying he's as good as Rip Hamilton. Rip Hamilton was like 6'7", 195. So, but that's the type of player he is. He's a jump and run guard. He can play very, Saban Lee is another guy that, he's very similar to. He can really drive the lane, run in transition, as well as play in the halftime sets or half court sets, pass, shoot. He has both levels of offensive attack in him. Real crafty, good player off the dribble. He would elevate, some athleticism and those kinds of things. What type of player is a combo guard? He definitely would be depth piece behind Cade Cunningham or Jaden Ivey. And would he be better than, let's say, a Burks or some of the other players that we right now, Corey Joseph, who they don't think will be coming back, Killian Hayes? He would be certainly different, and he would certainly be different. So, it kind of, is still kind of a work in progress. Definitely a guy at 31. I think if we were talking about the last two prospects being available, I think the latter or the former is probably more of the likelihood. Mm-hmm. Just kind of a game changer as far as the size. But Terquavion Smith, definitely an athletic prospect. Who's going to get his name called on Wednesday?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be really happy if it was called for the Detroit Pistons, because I mean, posterizing dunks and things like that. Guess what? They're worth 2 points still. This guy's going to get you from that 15 to 18 foot range all day long. I love it. You mentioned Rip Hamilton. I know we're not comparing him to him, but that's like, it's considered a very vanilla game in the sense, you're a mid-range jump shooter. Yeah, that's a lost art. It seems like it's like if you're not jacking up threes, you're making these fantastic dunks and running up in the court. Of course, traveling be damned, that doesn't get called anymore really. But this guy brings it in a way he's going to run you off the court, and that's what I like a lot too. So he's a nice prospect. Got another one to talk to. GG Jackson out of South Carolina, Coach. How do you like him?
Now, of the prospects we're talking at 31, which, Anthony Black, Terquavion Smith, and now GG Jackson, these are the guys we're talking at 31. Of these prospects at 31, this is my favorite one. We're going to talk about one more as well. But I don't see how he gets there. I think he's probably going to be one of these trade asset for draft picks in the first round. A guy that's drafted by a team but never plays for him. He gets traded, and is somewhere else within a half hour of being drafted. He's an elite stretch four. He just needs time to develop. He's a young guy that's going to stay in the draft. So he's choosing to not try out the nil era down in Columbia, South Carolina, and go in and start earning some checks in the G League and working himself up. Just physically, he needs to be able to do that. But he is a floor stretcher. He's got a real intriguing developing perimeter game for his size, for being a natural block player. A guy that can catch and do some things in the low post, can face up and score inside, is a paint in the paint scorer. He's really developing that perimeter shooting game as well, and once that really enhances, you have your modern stretch four, in GG Jackson, who's going to be playing in the NBA. He's a good jump and run athlete, can run the floor. He's got a 7-foot wingspan, which makes him more capable to disrupt passing lanes and play longer if he needs to play in a block against. If that's what they decide to do with a Victor Wembanyama in a given game against San Antonio or against Nikola Jokic, and being able to support and help against that, to be able to defend against guys like, Al Horford in Boston, and Julius Randle in New York, and those kinds of things. So, I mean, GG Jackson is the type of second rounder that is a guy 2-3 years from now, could be a regular in the Piston lineup and a favorite among the fans.
Yeah, he's definitely an athlete. Like you said, low patience would be needed, but yeah, physically he's got it all together. I mean, if he could keep improving, and I'm sure he can, yeah, he's going to be a nice player in the league. let's talk about one more, Coach. Tracy Jackson Davis out of Indiana, Big Ten guy. Let's talk about him.
Well, yeah, Trace Jackson Davis is he's one of the the guys that we've seen, really kind of covered as a star of the Big Ten last basketball season on the Big Ten Network. Big bodied kid, but doesn't look 6'9", 245. I think some people think 6'9", 245. They're picturing this big, wide-shouldered, wide-bodied Wes Unseld type big man, Rick Mahorn style big man, where his body's lean and rocked up. And yes, he's wide-shouldered, but he's got a rocked up physique. He's a true power forward post presence. Still a place in the league for a guy like this. He moves his feet well enough to really be able to create his own shot and offensive opportunities, as well as his ability to be able to defend. He's got to develop that perimeter game. That's got something that's going to have to be. He's going to have to become a floor stretcher, which he's shown the ability to hit some outside shots when he was in Bloomington. He was, but it's going to have to be at a much greater clip. He's but he's going to have to make sure that element is into his game where he can defend the perimeter from at least limiting outside scoring and being able to contribute to the outside scoring for his team a little bit in order to be an effective NBA player. But he's a true post scorer, rebounder, and passer in the vein of a guy that each team still wants a player that can be able to do that. Trace Jackson Davis definitely brings that to the table.
Yeah, he's a nice player. We got to see him a lot in the Big Ten, obviously, being up here in Michigan. And really good player. Like you mentioned that 245, he doesn't look 245, but it's a big difference. And his physique basically looks like how you would see a 6 foot 185 guy look like, but he's 6'9", 245. But it's deceiving. But yeah, tough to move off the block there when he posts up. So that's a nice feature of his game, Coach, no question. Just wrapping this one up, Coach, overall, your thoughts specifically on that fifth pick, just to recalibrate here. Who you really like Azure Thompson there at 5, right?
I do. I think it's going to be Sarah Thompson. I do. I think it's going to be Oscar Thompson. I just think they're going to really, as long as he's there, it's going to be him. The ability to defend the perimeter. They're going to put a premium on that. It's going to make him a starter on this team sooner rather than later, maybe right away. And it's going to, enhance the ability for guys like Cade and for Jada and Ivy to do their thing. It's going to create space and lanes for guys like Jalen Duren to run. He's going to be a space creator. He's not looking to drive and fill the lane all the time. He's going to allow some of those bigs to be able to, be guys that can, catch and do some things on the interior. He can run the floor well, and he shoots the ball well. So he's a great kick option for Jaden and Cade as they try to do the dribble drive and creativity game. So I think he's the best fit, personally, now with Monty Williams in place.
Yeah, hard to argue with that, Coach, honestly. And folks, if you're disappointed with that 5th overall pick, you needn't go too far back in time. Last year, the Pistons picked 5th and got Jaden Ivey, who's the starting guard in this team, current point guard in this team, and is going to be a very good player for a long time. That the Thompson twins and Whitmore, to me, I think there's great value in all of them. I do share your optimism on Asher Jackson, but Amen's very good as well, but Cam Whitmore I like a lot too. But I would agree. If it's not Asher, then it's going to be a tough call between Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore. But that's a good type of tough decision to have to make because you're picking you're trying to pick between two very good prospects, and that's never a bad thing. So we shall see. Let's let Troy Weaver work his magic, and that draft is on the it's on the 22nd, correct, Coach? NBA draft.
It's on the 22nd this Wednesday, so we'll have a couple of new Pistons.
It's going to be exciting. So definitely watch and tune in, and we'll definitely have a recap and season preview down the road in about a month or two before camp opens up to kind of gauge where the Pistons are, because a lot can happen between now, the draft, and before camp starts. There's a lot of trade rumors out there. Who knows? The NBA is pretty crazy like that with the trades, and it's ironic to me, Coach, that as deep of a league as the NBA is and as popular as basketball is around the world, it's only a 2-round draft compared to all the other leagues. But yet in that same vein, nothing's a given in this draft. I mean, you're only picking, there's 60 guys are going to take, and that doesn't mean they're all going to they're going to probably play, but they might not make it. It's such a competitive league. And there's so many guys that don't get drafted.
There's players drafted in the lottery that aren't going to necessarily make it. Before, if you're drafted in the lottery, the expectation is you're going to play in this league 10 years. And that doesn't happen. So, yeah, for sure. But let's hope, our draft luck of not getting, the high pick when we want it doesn't translate into us getting bust players. Because, and I don't want any of those kids to be busts or anything like that. But, if anything, when are we going to catch that break to where we get an absolute change agent, difference maker type player in a spot in which we didn't think we were going to? More James Houstons and things of that nature. And hopefully James Houston can, answer that bell this year and not be just that one-hit wonder, but guys like that are going to come up, that are going to be the player of the team that rallies and the centers around the franchise, centered around at pick 31. When are we going to